Welcome to Module 2.1 of the lesson overview of the GEMMA framework, entitled Predictors of Well-Being, Workplace and Organizational Factors. In this module, we will look at the factors that can help us predict our well-being at work. Being a predictor means that these are the things that it is possible to change in order to increase the well-being of the employee. So this module is very important to be aware of how these variables are in our workplace. We will also provide some data on the risk and protective factors that we obtained from academics who participated in several focus groups in several countries. Let's start by addressing the first question. What are the main predictors of well-being? To achieve high levels of well-being, several variables have been analyzed, including the interpersonal environment, off-the-job experiences, and employee behaviors. Sinentag and colleagues conducted a systematic review in 2023 that took into account the processes involved in the main theoretical models explained in Module 1.3. Thus, they tried to systematize all the information and evidence related to the variables highlighted in the main theoretical models. And they identified two main types of factors. These predictors of well-being at work are, on the one hand, job and organizational factors, and on the other hand, individual behavioral factors related to the employee. After this brief introduction, this module will discuss the first type of predictors, namely workplace and organizational factors. Let's explore them. One of the first predictors to be explained is related to individual factors and refers to the resources and demands that individuals encounter at work. Its protective factors have been related to job resources such as autonomy, learning opportunities, or task variety. On the other hand, factors that may endanger the well-being of individuals at work are challenge stressors, such as workload or time pressure to complete tasks, as well as hindrance stressors, such as the perception of conflict in one's roles in the organization or ambiguity. On the other hand, interpersonal and teamwork factors include the interpersonal environment and the protective and risk factors of well-being that can be found in this dimension. The protective factors of well-being related to the interpersonal environment have been associated with social support. This factor can be defined as instrumental support provided at a given moment, such as the fact of helping with work-related tasks, and emotional support, such as the experience of receiving appreciation and warmth. Moreover, the social support also involves the feeling of social identification with one's work group and organization, and finally, the fact of working in teams instead of working alone at the workplace. On the other hand, the factors that may endanger the well-being of individuals at work may be the existence of interpersonal conflicts, being harassed, incivility characterized by behaviors that may violate the norms of mutual respect, or the perception of being ignored or excluded by others, which is also called ostracism. Finally, leadership factors are key predictor factors and refer to the specific behaviors by which leaders or supervisors can positively influence the health and well-being of their employees. For example, some protective factors promoted by supervisors include modeling a good work-life balance, setting clear rules, being sensitive to researchers' needs, and providing appropriate support and guidance. Conversely, it is important to remember that abusive or destructive leadership styles jeopardize the well-being of individuals at work. However, in addition to the data found in the literature, we wanted to highlight the data on risk and protective factors reported by researchers from several countries in the focus groups we conducted. Are you curious about what we found? Let's start by reviewing some of the protective factors that the researchers mentioned. First, among the individual workplace factors, researchers identified the importance of having job-related tasks that align with their values, receiving new learning and training opportunities, knowing their exact rights and responsibilities, receiving adequate financial compensation, and having a sense of academic freedom, among others. Second, among the interpersonal and team factors, they mentioned feeling part of the group and building new relationships. Thirdly, among the leadership protective factors, these researchers emphasized, in addition to the previously mentioned factors, having supervisors who value the work of employees and encourage researchers to have a healthy personal life. Do you identify with these factors? Do you think these predictors increase your well-being? We encourage you to think about it. In addition to the protective factors, we'd like to highlight the risk factors that researchers in several countries identified as relevant to the decline in well-being at work. Let's explore them. First, in terms of individual workplace factors, researchers mention the problem of excessive administrative demands, the instability of academic careers, the lack of information about opportunities, and also the lack of access to relevant resources, as well as the performance of unpaid research work. Second, among the interpersonal and team factors, they mentioned a bad atmosphere and mobbing at the workplace. Third, among the leadership risk factors, these researchers also highlighted that having supervisors with excessive expectations of employees, overburdening employees with additional tasks not related to teaching or research, and feeling evaluated and controlled with the parameterization of scientific work also endanger their well-being at work. Once again, we invite you to think about your personal risk factor for achieving well-being that you may find in your place of work. We hope you have learned about the predictors of increased or decreased well-being at work. We also invite you to reflect on your own so that we can change them. In the next module, we will also discuss the individual behavioral factors related to the employee associated with well-being at the workplace. See you in the next unit.